Hi guys, let's talk about some color pencil techniques. Our objectives are be able to identify and describe the characteristics and techniques of color pencils as an art medium, develop skill in shading and technique using color pencils, and then demonstrate understanding of the use of warm and cool colors when shading and highlighting forms. So we have two words worth knowing. Our first is local color. Local color is the true color of an object as seen in daylight or flat white light. So local color is the actual color of an object. So the local color of a lemon is yellow. So the local color of this highlighter is yellow. The second is perceived color. Perceived color consists of the subtle changes in hue affected by the color of the light and the colors around it and reflections of ambient colors on your subject. So if there is a blue light next to me right here and it's shining on my face, it's going to change the color of my face and have a blue tint to it. So you would perceive my skin tone to be a lot more blue. So when you're working outside or under natural light or under fluorescent light, the colors of your object are going to be affected by the season, the weather conditions, the time of day, and your distance from the subject. This also becomes really important in other art forms like photography, where a lot of photographers will go shoot in what's called golden hour, which is an hour before sunset, because it has a nice golden glow to everything. So the type of light that hits your subject changes the color, and that would be the perceived color. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about color pencils. So they have a core of color pigment and a protective casing made of wood, like right here. The core of most of these are made of a wax, pigments, additives, and binding agents. They can be wax-based, oil-based, water-soluble, which would be a watercolor pencil. Some can be mechanical. So artist grade color pencils, so we're going to use the Prismacolor brand, have higher concentrations of high quality pigments versus student grade pencils, which are generally don't blend as well since they have more filler in them. So we're going to be using these because they are higher quality. And then attitudes have shifted about the use of color pencils in fine art. So now it's kind of been embraced as a legitimate art medium versus before when it wasn't really seen as an art form. So also, color pencils can be soft or hard and refer to how well they can blend or create sharp points. So a softer pencil will blend and be smoother, whereas a hard pencil will be really good for nice fine details. So color pencils are versatile. They can be used alone or with other mediums. They work great for mixed media projects. They are semi-opaque, so you can do light layers and light pressure to allow for transparency, so you can have multiple colors shine through. You can also press harder and have heavy pressure to create more solid, opaque areas. They are blendable. You can layer multiple colors and do what's called optical mixing, where you have multiple colors next to each other and blend together to create a color. Burnishing, which is when you're pressing really, really hard. Layering. Solvents, so you can use types of solvents to blend and break down the pigment to make it almost like paint. There's blender pencils, which are clear color pencils that don't have any color but will easily blend your color together. And then some techniques. So we're looking at creating an even distribution of color. You have to be patient with this. If you're just rushing through and pressing really hard, your work is not going to look as good as it could. So you want to work in layers. You want smooth transitions, crisp edges, like I always talk about. So you're going to be applying your layers lightly, building up with strong, small strokes or circles. And then use that little tiny motion and then really light pressure. So you're allowing yourself to build up multiple layers and you can layer multiple colors together. So this is going to create what's called dimensional color. So as you finish, so you start with these little light layers. For the final layer, you're going to press harder in what's called burnish and finish out an area to make it completely solid. So we're going to start with the 24 count Prismacolor set. So we're going to be working with colors from that set. So to create your dark values, no black. I don't put the black pencil in there. Don't ask me for it. You're not going to get it. We are going to create black. And we're going to create it by using cool dark values. So you can see on the left there, those are our cool values on the color wheel. So our violets, our blues, and our greens. And the cool darks that we are going to use are blue violet, violet, dark green, indigo blue, and sometimes I also use Tuscan red in there. So we're going to be using these underneath to create our tones and our shades in our drawings. If you have a bigger set of these pencils, there are more colors than this. You can also use different cool dark colors to create a variety of different dark shades, but we're just going to stick with the 24 set. When you're creating light values, you can use white. However, you got to do light layers. White will kind of make this like milky cast to your work, so you don't always want to overuse it. So the lightest value is probably going to be about 20% of your local color. So in this fish, it would be the orange or the yellow, and then go over it, pressing a little bit harder, about 80% white. I also like to try using pale warm colors in my highlights instead of just using white. So for instance, in a red sphere, I would use an orange or a yellow in my highlight and not just white. And this will it'll make it look more dimensional, more interesting, and less flat. So to create this dimensional color I keep talking about, you want to use analogous colors and lighter values of the hue when you're layering. So don't just, if it's a red sphere, don't just use one red pencil and then be done. Layer multiple reds in there. Don't scribble. We're just doing really small circles, but they're overlapping. So if you're working on a red apple, think about the mid-tones of the apple. Add some orange and yellow. Remember, analogous colors. In the highlight, use a peach or a pink instead of just white. So when you're looking at this, it's going to look a lot more interesting and less flat. So our skills that we're going to be working on is our smooth transition of hue and value, and then crisp edges where appropriate. So again, light layers until all your colors have been added. And then once you've got it kind of where you want, the last step is to press harder with that pencil and blend everything together. So you want to blend between the different values so it's smooth, and then the edges in the background are crisp. So you need to think about what is a smooth transition versus what needs a crisp, harsh edge. And then drawing along the edges very precisely. So if to do this little background right there, you would have a really, really sharp pencil to do that edge, whereas if you're blending, you'd want to use the side of the pencil and blend. So you're allowing for crisp edges to define the space, but in the sphere, you're blending it so they overlap and merge together very slowly. So here are some more examples. I also have these in class. So the dark and light colors are layered very softly between the local colors of the spheres. And then I'm using those cool colors underneath. So think about our complements. So in the yellow, I'm using violet. In the green, I'm using a little bit of that Tuscan red to create the shadows. And there are the colors that I'm using. So you could see to make those greens, I'm not just using one green. I'm layering multiple greens. Same with the yellow. I'm not just coloring it with one yellow pencil. Here's another example. So you can see the variety of colors that are used. And also create a value scale so you kind of know how to do it, how to get it the way you look before you start with your sphere. So one more. So the highlight has all of these colors. The mid-tone has all of these colors. And then our shadow has all of these. I would even add a little bit more indigo in there, or possibly a little bit of the dark green to even make that shadow a little bit darker. So your practice work. You're going to do a set of value scales which have the colors listed, and you're going to practice layering and creating dark tones versus light tones of each color. There is a tutorial video that walks you through all this. And then second, you're going to do 2 different shaded spheres. You're going to do a cool toned, and then you're going to do a warm toned, and there's also a tutorial video for this to help you walk you through how do you pick what colors and what that type of shading looks like. All right, I can't wait to see what you do. If you have any questions, please ask. Good job.